What if I told you there's one single formula that sits at the heart of finance? You know, the one that tells you the price of pretty much anything, from a simple IOU to a massive company. Well, there is. And today, we're going to break it all down. It's called the equation of value.
But let's kick things off with a question. How do you actually put a price on a promise? I mean, a promise to pay you back in the future, maybe in one lump sum or in a bunch of smaller payments over the years. What's all that future money really worth to you right here, right now? That's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
And the answer, well, it's all in the equation of value. And at its core, it's a beautifully simple balancing act. It just says that the value of everything you get has to equal the value of everything you give once you account for the time value of money. In other words, what comes in must equal what goes out. That's it. That's the big idea. So here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll really get a feel for this balancing act. Then we'll build the actual equation. After that, we'll see how it works as a practical toolkit. And finally, we'll throw in a curveball. What happens when you add real-world uncertainty into the mix?
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the Financial Balancing Act. This is all about getting that core principle locked in.
So I want you to picture a set of old-school balancing scales. On one side, you pile up all the money you expect to get from an investment. That's your income. On the other side, you put all the money you have to pay out. The equation of value is basically the rule that keeps that scale perfectly level. It tells you what a fair exchange actually looks like. And trust me, this is not just some abstract theory. This simple balancing act is literally the engine humming behind the scenes of the entire financial world. It's how analysts figure out the fair price for a stock, how insurance companies calculate your premiums, how you work out the return on an investment, even how to value a house. It is everywhere.
Okay, great. So now that we've got the concept down, let's move on to Section 2 and turn this idea into a formula we can actually use. It's time to look at the blueprint.
Okay, deep breath. Here it is in all its glory. I know, it might look a bit like alphabet soup with all those symbols, but stick with me because the idea behind it is really straightforward. All it's saying is that the price you pay today is equal to the value of two streams of money. All those regular payments you're going to get, plus that final big payment you get at the very end. Let's meet the key players here. So let's break down who's who in this equation. P is simple. It's the price you pay up front. D is for the dividend. That's the regular payment you get. R is the redemption amount, the lump sum you get back at the end. N is just the number of years this all happens over. And then there's the really crucial one, I, the interest rate. Think of I as the time travel rate. It's the magic number that tells us what money in the future is worth today. All right, this is where it gets really cool. Let's get into Section 3. We're going to treat this equation like the ultimate financial Swiss Army knife. Why? Because if you know all the parts except for one, you can always use the equation to figure out that one missing piece. So let's set up our first puzzle. Imagine you know exactly how much money you're going to get, for how long, and what kind of return you want on your money. The only question is, what's a fair price to pay for that deal today? Okay, here's the deal. We're going to get £5 a year for 10 years straight. At the very end of those 10 years, we also get a final payment of £125. And for this to be worth our while, we want to earn a 10% return. The only thing we don't know is P, the price. So we just take all those numbers, pop them into our formula, and let it do its thing. The equation takes every single one of those future payments and discounts it back to find its value in today's money. And the result? And boom, the fair price is exactly £78.92. This is the perfect balance point. If you pay a penny more, your return will be less than 10%. Pay a penny less and your return will be higher. Simple as that. Okay, ready to flip this thing on its head? Let's try another challenge. What if you know the price you're willing to pay, but you need to figure out what that regular payment has to be to make it a worthwhile investment? Here's the new setup. Let's say you pay £127.12 for an investment today. You know you'll get £125 back in 10 years, and you demand a 7.75% return. The big question is, what does that annual payment D have to be to make all the numbers work? We just shuffle the equation around a bit, solve for D, and there you have it. That investment has to pay you exactly £10 every single year to justify its price and give you the return you want. See how versatile this is? And now for the big one, the challenge that gets a little tricky, solving for the interest rate, or the yield. This is often the question every investor really wants answered. What is my actual rate of return going to be? The thing is, you can't usually solve for this one directly. So we use this really clever two-step dance. First, you make a rough estimate just to get yourself in the right ballpark. Then you use a much more precise method called linear interpolation. Think of it like playing the hot and cold game. You test one interest rate that you know is too high and another that you know is too low. The right answer has to be somewhere in between them, so you just draw a straight line between your two guesses to find the exact point you're looking for. It's a surprisingly simple way to zero in on a super accurate answer.
Fantastic, but there's a catch. So far, we've been living in a perfect world where every promised payment shows up right on time. So for our final section, let's get real. It's time to talk about dealing with uncertainty. What happens when those payments aren't guaranteed? Well, you've got two main tools in your kit for this. Method 1 is surgical. You adjust for probabilities. You look at each future payment and multiply it by its actual chance of being paid. Method 2 is more of a blunt instrument. You just use a higher interest rate, what we call a discount rate, for the whole investment. That higher rate acts as a blanket penalty for the overall riskiness of the deal. And to make this crystal clear, the source material gives us this absolutely brilliant example. Imagine a woman who invests in a company run by ex-criminals, okay? She expects to get £100 a year for the next 10 years, but, there's clearly a bit of risk involved here, so how on earth do we value that? Okay, let's look at the numbers. If we pretend there's no risk, the investment is worth over £772. But if we start applying probabilities, like say the chance of getting paid gets a little smaller each year, the value absolutely plummets to £575. Or if we just use a higher interest rate to account for the shady management, the value is £614. Look at the difference. This shows you just how dramatically risk changes the entire equation. So you see, this isn't some dusty formula just for Wall Street traders. The equation of value is personal. It's working in your life right now. Your mortgage, your student loan, your retirement plan, they are all a balancing act of payments stretched out over time. This single, powerful idea is shaping your financial life as we speak. So the real question is, what's your financial future balancing?